The EU's rule of law report singles out Hungary, Slovakia and Italy for their democratic backsliding.
New UN report shows the world is falling significantly short of achieving zero hunger by 2030.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has told the US Congress that America and Israel must stand together.
Italy, Slovakia and Hungary have all been strongly criticised by the European Commission in its annual Rule of Law report, which raises concerns over media freedom, the independence of judiciaries and corruption. The Commission noted that Italy has made no progress on introducing safeguards over the use of defamation and on protecting journalists' anonymity in specific circumstances. Last year, journalist Robert Saviano was fined €1,000 after he insulted Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's attitude towards migrants on TV.
We express concerns related to the independence and funding of public service media, and we ask authorities to address the situation. We have been expressing the need for safeguards for years now, but with new incidents reported by stakeholders and budget cuts, this is becoming very urgent.
Hungary, the most prolific abuser of the EU's democratic values, was criticised for making no progress in improving the rule of law, whether by fighting high-level corruption or by ensuring the media is independent. The country is already under an Article 7 procedure from the Treaty of the European Union, which can lead to the suspension of its right to vote on EU decisions.
We try to be fair in the way to analyse the situation, but I will say Hungary is a real systemic issue for the Commission about the rule of law.
The report also raises concerns about Slovakia and Greece, where it warns that rulings by the European Court of Human Rights are increasingly not being implemented. The independence of the media is diminishing in many member states, and according to media NGOs, it's time for the EU Commission to act.
Nous sommes partisans de procédures d'infraction contre les pays qui ne respectent pas la liberté de la presse. Il est temps en Europe de punir ceux qui bafouent la liberté de la presse. Et donc nous espérons que sur base du nouveau règlement européen sur la liberté des médias, qui sera entré en vigueur entre novembre 2024 et août 2025, sur base de ce règlement, il sera possible d'initier des procédures d'infraction contre l'Italie, contre la Slovaquie, contre la Grèce éventuellement, et nous serons là pour aider la Commission à documenter ces procédures d'infraction.
But the report is not all bad. It says that on the whole, member states are much better prepared to detect and prevent democratic backsliding. And for those that have slid backwards, it offers tailored recommendations on what to do to fix it. Ursula von der Leyen may find it more challenging to put together her team of commissioners the second time around. After the far right and the right made big gains in the European elections, both Italy and the Czech Republic are now insisting that their commissioners are given big portfolios. Whilst each member state gets a commissioner, it's up to von der Leyen which portfolio they receive.
The puzzle of putting her commission together will be a difficult one this time, because the commissioners that she will receive from member states will be much more diverse in political views than it has been in the past. More Eurosceptics being part of that portfolio.
The Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni wants an economic vice presidency, and the Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala said he, quote, wants a strong portfolio, preferably the economic one. Hungary's far-right Prime Minister Viktor Orbán hasn't announced whether he wants Olivia Farfei to continue as the Neighbourhood and Enlargement Commissioner, or whether he wants to nominate someone else. However, pressure won't come from the far-right coalition in the Netherlands. It wants Commissioner for Climate Action Wopke Hoekstra, who was the previous choice of the previous Liberal Prime Minister, to stay on. As in 2019, Ursula von der Leyen has asked all countries to request both male and female candidates to ensure there's a gender balance. But all candidates will have to go through hearings in the European Parliament to evaluate their skills, and this could be a challenge, says one analyst.
so where the European Parliament invites all the commissioner candidates in the respective committees and asks them lots of questions to test whether they're fit for the job. And then in the very end, the whole of the college is again voted. There is again an approval vote by the European Parliament. And that takes time because the Parliament also here is always flexing its muscles a little bit and turning down one or even several commissioners.
10 of the 27 member states have already put forward their candidates. Greece, meanwhile, is keen to be given the latest post to be created, a commissioner for the Mediterranean.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said he is ready to press forward with Israel's war against Hamas until he achieves total victory. Addressing the US Congress in Washington, Netanyahu called on America to stand together with Israel.
For the forces of civilization to triumph, America and Israel must stand together. Because when we stand together, something very simple happens. We win, they lose.
More than 50 Democratic lawmakers boycotted Netanyahu's speech, and thousands of protesters gathered near the capital to condemn Israel's war in Gaza and denounce the Israeli Prime Minister as a war criminal. Capitol Police deployed pepper spray on those attempting to cross the police line, and arrests have been made. Police also clashed with demonstrators who were seeking to block the Prime Minister's route to Congress, with some being forcibly removed.
With around 4 months to go before the US elects a new president for 4 years, the German government has already been preparing for the prospect of a second Donald Trump government. But how could Trump's return to the White House affect Europe's biggest economy and the EU? Philip Madonick from the German Council on Foreign Relations warns that security policy, economic policy and foreign policy are set to change.
Für Deutschland, für Europa gibt es, glaube ich, ganz klar die Schwierigkeit, wie würde man damit umgehen, wenn Trump im Bereich Handel tatsächlich seine Ankündigungen oder seine Beschreibung davon, wie er mit Tarifen, mit Zöllen im Handel umgehen würde, wahrmachen würde. Zum anderen wird weiterhin die China-Politik der USA ganz klar das transatlantische Verhältnis auch mit beeinflussen. Und Trump hat schon in der ersten Amtszeit, aber auch jetzt wieder gezeigt, dass Sicherheitspolitik nicht mehr selbstverständlich ist, wie es das war für Europa, aber auch für Deutschland als ganz engen Verbündeten der USA.
Regional Director of the German Marshall Fund, Sutta David Wilt, says Germany and the EU are preparing for the scenario that the US would decrease its presence in Europe and instead turn its attention to the Indo-Pacific.
Most people in Berlin reckon that Ukraine is going to be the responsibility for Europe moving forward when it comes to both defense and reconstruction. Obviously, it's important that the United States still plays a role, but most Europeans are betting that either administration is going to expect Europe to take the lead on Ukraine.
Whilst the German government has been preparing well behind the scene for a potential second Trump term, his unpredictability is still of concern. Trump is known for making quick, rash decisions and deals his way that could potentially change the course of history, not just for Ukraine and China, but also the Middle East. Liv Stroud in Berlin for Euronews.
Doctors in Portugal have gone on a 2-day strike to demand for better pay and working conditions. The strike affects surgeries and consultations which were cancelled in various regions of the country, including the capital, Lisbon. Adherence has been logged at around 70% since it began on Tuesday.
Quando cheguei ao sítio da consulta, passado que para 5 minutos, chamaram-me a dizer que o meu médico estava em greve.
Among the demands made by the National Federation of Doctors are the reinstatement of the normal working week of 35 hours, the updating of the salary scale, and the integration of internal doctors into the entry-level category of the medical career.
Existem muitos serviços, nomeadamente a nível da pediatria, a nível do ZUC, nomeadamente o serviço de anestesiologia, que os corredores estão vazios.
Medical practitioners in Portugal are among the lowest paid in the European Union.
Eu, como médica interna, não tenho dúvidas que quero continuar a trabalhar no SNS, mas o SNS precisa de médicos e os médicos precisam de melhores condições de trabalho, nomeadamente os aumentos salariais, que têm que ser discutidos no seu salário base e não nestes modelos de prémios e extras.
Negotiations between the doctors' unions and the country's health ministry have so far yielded no real agreement. The world is falling significantly short of achieving zero hunger by 2030. According to a new report on food security published by the United Nations, around 733 million people faced hunger last year. The new report shows that the world has been set back 15 years with levels of undernourishment comparable to those between 2008 and 2009.
The numbers have not changed from the previous years, basically, which were already years where we have seen already the increase because of COVID-19. So what we are reporting this year is that we have between 713 million and 757 million people which are chronic undernourished, people facing hunger. This is 1 out of 11 people in the world are facing hunger.
The regional trends vary significantly in the report. While hunger continues to rise in Africa, it remains stable in Asia.
South America has very developed social protection programs that allows them to target interventions so they can effectively move out of hunger in a very fast way because it's efficient. In the case of Africa, we have not observed that. We have observed that they still don't have the institutionality to deliver a good targeted social protection program.
Experts believe food insecurity and malnutrition are worsening due to persisting food price inflation, conflict, and climate change.